Named after the bold leader, Ioannis Kapodistrias, who introduced abolitionist objectives at a time when they were politically incorrect in Europe, this award, which is a collective award from the entire Greek community of Western Pennsylvania, recognizes those whose leadership has broken ground for the betterment of all in Western Pennsylvania. Mayor Gainey, you broke so much new ground in your service to the region as a representative in the state legislature, and we know that you and your exceptional team will transform our city and our region, making it a better place for all, inspiring and fostering a more perfect union. As we honor you with the Kapodistrias Award, please also accept a copy of the book by Kostas Eretimiotakis, who unfortunately could not be here among us due to his professional commitments. Mayor Gainey.
Thank you. But you know, what I enjoyed the most outside of this wonderful award is the history. You know, I tell people all the time that if we really wanted to make the world a better place than in public schools and in every school, we would have in our civics classes an education on everybody's history. Because then that will bring more respect, more love, and more tolerance to the world. Where I see the world divided is because we really don't understand one another, because we've never given us an opportunity to know. In the land of immigrants like America, in our civics courses, we should know each other. We really should. You know, I tell people all the time, and I share this with a lot of people that I talk about, you know, we all have, the number one, we all have a lot in common. That's number one. We have a lot in common. We have a lot that makes up culture, like food. That's why I want to come. I love tasting different food. I just think that food is the greatest breaking ground to bring people together. And so because of that, I always want to taste food. I mean, my doctor might get into an argument. You know, they come with the territory. But then the other thing is that I try to tell people is that we're connected. People say, well, what do you mean by that? And I say, at some level, we're all connected. Like I'm AB plus with my blood type. And regardless of what color or ethnicity you come from, there will always be people that have AB blood, AB plus blood in your veins. And that means something, because you think about it, that regardless of your color, your ethnic background, some of us have the same blood running through us. And that amazes me more than anything. That no matter where you come from, there's a common theme that we have blood running through us. If you A, there's, regardless of what race or ethnicity, there's going to be a group of people that they're A blood. And that's what makes me say that we can have a city for all, and that we can be one community. I'm so happy that you gave the history.
Thank you. Thank
you.
You
know, because just think if you had a classroom of children that could hear this history, how much more would they respect each other? In the land of immigrants, we should have that. But since government is government and there's a reason for division, they don't want that. It's days like this that I say thank you, because you gave me that. You gave me what the classroom couldn't give me. And to me and to everybody, that should mean a lot. So I want to say thank you. And in return, I have 2 proclamations. I have one from the Allegheny County Executive, Rich Fitzgerald. He couldn't be here today, but he did send the proclamation. And before I go with that, I'm gonna be real interested in reading this book.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be real interested in reading
That
this
collective will be made into a movie, from what I
This
understand.
is heavy. Wow. I mean, this is wisdom. And from me, I have a proclamation that I wanted to share. And whereas democracy was born out of the ancient Greek civilization and has long met the needs and aspiration of a freedom-loving nation around the world, and whereas the Greek War of Independence started on March 25th, 1821, in search of democracy, freedom, and justice, which created an unparalleled way of help me out with the word. Hellenic, I want to make sure I got it right. And Hellenics among Americans of all walks of life, which continue to this day. And whereas the office of the mayor at Gainey joins the American Greek community in honoring James Williams, a free black slave from Baltimore. And whereas many
Hellenic.
thank you, leaders contribute to the American Abolitionist movement. And whereas the democracy spirit of Greeks compelled them to overly support social justice movements of African Americans in defense of equality and equity, as exemplified by the union of the great Dr. Martin Luther King. And whereas Archbishop, give me his name, get it right.
Malcolm.
Thank you. Of the Greek Orthodox Church in March of 1965. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Ed Gainey, Mayor of the City of Pittsburgh, honor you today and thank you today with a proclamation from the city in the spirit of love and cooperation to always move humanity forward. God bless you.
Dear friends, Ioannis Kapodistrias is well known for his role as Greece's first governor following the revolution of 1821. Initially, a foreign officer and then foreign minister of Russia, history has recognized him for his important role in helping the powers to navigate establishment of the order of post-Napoleonic Europe. What is almost unknown is Kapodistrias's advocacy to end the slave trade and abolish slavery in Europe. At the Congress of Vienna, 1814-15, where the four victorious powers, England, Austria, Prussia, Russia, dealt with the national and political partitioning of Europe after the defeat of Napoleon, Kapodistrias's first objective was to advocate for a formal insertion of articles guaranteeing the rights of blacks in Africa and the abolition of slavery and the slave trade. Although his advocacy found significant support among the diplomats, such articles were not formally introduced because they encountered strong pushback from those interests that would have been affected by any abolition of the slave trade. 3 years later, at the Congress of Aix-la-Chapelle, modern-day Aachen, in 1818, Kapodistrias submitted a memorandum containing a plan for the rapid and effective fight against the slave trade. In this memorandum, Kapodistrias proposed that the powers enact strict measures to effectively combat the slave trade with the active participation of all European forces. Among them he suggested the creation, on the west coast of Africa, with the cooperation of all states, of an organization with the name L'Institution Africaine, with its own administration, judiciary and military power. The creation by the naval forces of an independent joint naval force, with the mission of pursuit of slave traders' ships. Despite Kapodistrias's efforts, and strong diplomatic support, significant pushback came from those countries that had vested interests in the slave trade, especially Great Britain. Once again, introduction of his articles into a formal document was not implemented. Nevertheless, Kapodistrias's victory came 67 years later, and 54 years after his death, when at the Berlin Conference, 1884-85, an agreement was formalized to establish an organization with the name Association Internationale Africaine, based on the principles and objectives set by Kapodistrias in 1818. During the Vienna Congress, the infamously Machiavellian Austrian Prince Clement von Metternich writes to Dorothea Lieven, a German noblewoman and wife of Prince Christoph von Lieven, who served as the Russian ambassador to London between 1812 and 1834. "I be able to sleep peacefully only when Kapodistrias has been killed. While he lives, he will always be dangerous. But to tell the truth, he is an honest and very helpful person, while the only opponent that is difficult to defeat is the absolute honest man, and such is Kapodistrias." Kapodistrias may very well have influenced the nascent abolitionist movement in America, which also coincided with the Hellenic fervor that gripped America as early as 1814.
The Greek fever, experienced by the United States in the 1820s, and the contribution of American Philhellenism to the Greek Revolution are reasonably well known, even though much is still being discovered. What is less known is that the struggle of the Greeks was also supported by blacks, first by the liberated people of the island of Haiti, which, incidentally, was the first sovereign country to recognize a free Greece. It is also not too well known or appreciated that the Greek Revolution formed the basis, and the Greek slaves became the symbols, of the struggle for the abolition of slavery in the USA. It is worth noting that the Freedom's Journal published Philhellenic poems, like the Greek song, the To Greece, and the Song of the Janissary. These poems make allusions to the motto, liberty or death, and the universal symbols of oppression, the chains. For example, to Greece. Hail, land of Leonidas still, though Muslims encircle thy shore. Yet quail not, descendants of those. The heroes of Marathon's plain. Better lay where you fathers repose, than where the fierce Ottomans chain. And, Greek song, mount, soldier, mount, the gallant steed. Seek, seek, the ranks of war. 'Tis better there in death to bleed, than drag a tyrant's car. Strike, strike, nor think the blow unseen, that frees the limbs where chains have been.
Dear friends, over 2 centuries ago, Greek revolutionaries, American, British, French, and Russian volunteers united together in a struggle against the Ottoman Empire, the great tyrant power of its day. Lovers of freedom from everywhere, of whom the Englishman Lord Byron and the American Samuel Gridley Howe are best remembered, thronged to the relief of the desperate Greeks. Among these volunteers was an African-American sailor and cook, who, no more than Dory Miller at Pearl Harbor, could not be kept in his galley when skill and courage were needed on deck. Jonathan Peckham Miller, a native of Randolph, Vermont, 1796 to 1847, volunteered in 1824 to serve in the Greek Revolution and became a colonel on the staff of another American Philhellene warrior, General George Jarvis, at Messalonqui, where, for his heroic feats during the siege, was known as the American Daredevil. He escaped the fall of Messalonqui, returned to the US and was sent back to Greece in early 1827 as principal agent of the New York Greek Committee, in which capacity he served for about a year. On his final return to the US, he, like his more famous comrade in arms, Samuel Gridley Howe, later an associate of John Brown, entered the abolitionist movement and as a member of the Vermont legislature, 1831 to 1833, introduced a resolution for the abolition of slavery in the District of Columbia. He lectured widely against slavery and attended the World's Anti-Slavery Convention in London in 1840. In his diary, on December 21, 1827, Miller writes, "Took James Williams, a black man from Baltimore, into my house, he having been some time in the hospital. Williams came to Greece with Lord Cochrane, was cook of the Sauvier, and conducted himself with great coolness and intrepidity in several engagements, particularly at the Battle of the Gulf of Lepanto, where he showed truly that he had been in the school of Decatur. For when no Greek could be found to take the helm, Williams volunteered his services, and was there struck down by a splinter, which broke his leg and arm. He had before contended with the Turks, for he had lost a finger before Algiers in the United States service under Decatur. Being destitute of clothing, I provided him with a double suit. The Battle of the Gulf of Lepanto took place in September 1827. Williams served on the Sauvier, Soter, in Greek, under the command of Captain Thomas. On September 23, the Sauvier ran the gauntlet of the forts of Rio, under heavy fire, into the Gulf of Corinth, being followed by the rest of the revolutionary ships, 2 schooners and 2 gunboats that also included the Carteria, a ship under the command of Captain Hastings. On September 30, the revolutionary flotilla destroyed the Ottoman fleet at Salona. It was in running the gauntlet into the Gulf that Williams distinguished himself. Williams very likely served on Decatur's ship in June of 1815, when he captured the Algerian flagship Mashida and drove another enemy vessel aground soon after enforcing on the Algerian Ottomans a treaty ending tribute from the US and exacting reparation for unfriendly acts against American vessels in the Mediterranean. Who was James Williams?
By all documented and secondary accounts, James Jacob Williams led an incredible life, starting with almost unimaginable deprivation as a slave in the antebellum American South. After somehow managing to escape the sugarcane plantation he worked on, south of his birthplace of Baltimore, he made his way as a stowaway onto a ship that was bound for northern Africa's Barbary coast. Admiral Stephen Decatur decided to put the young man to work on his ship, where he labored in the galley as he crossed the Atlantic. After fighting in Decatur's navy against the Barbary Coast pirates, Williams, at the suggestion of Decatur, who did not want him to return to the US for fear of being recaptured and re-enslaved, willingly went to Greece to fight as a member of Lord Cochrane's Hellenic Navy fleet. During military operations to liberate Naupactos, Williams was seriously injured by a cannon fracture in his arm and leg. At a critical moment of the battle, he led a group of Greek fighters and took control of the Sovia, which was unmanned, attracting enemy fire. This saved the boat from being captured. Williams appears again with the fleet of Admiral Andreas Miaulis at the island of Hydra after the Third Siege of Messalongi and the exodus of survivors from that city. Williams is also thought to have participated in the pivotal naval Battle of Navarino in October of 1827, where he served on the Greek sloop of war, Karteria, Greek for perseverance. Wounded in the battle, he reportedly ended up on the island of Poros in a hospital which was constructed as a gift of the renowned Boston Philhellene Samuel Gridley Howe and his family, who were also among the leaders of the abolitionist movement in America. Reports indicate that this brave African-American Philhellene succumbed to significant battle-inflicted wounds in 1829 in Greece, very likely on the island of Poros. Williams is the only American slave ever known to have escaped bondage who then chose to fight for the freedom of another subjugated nation. His life and adventures are truly an odyssey for the ages. Not only did he find freedom for himself, but he helped people half a world away win their own freedom against the tyranny of the Ottoman Empire. His incredible life has been recently fictionalized in a moving novel, The Fantastic Voyage of James Williams. To Breathe, to Believe by Dr. Kostas Rhythmiotakis. We have constructed and, tonight, we will present an audio trailer of the book, comprised of key excerpts. As the author says about the life of Williams, it is said that heroes are made, not born. In the case of James Williams, the events swirling around his life, his dreams and his suffering, even God himself, all conspire to transform a human being, born a slave, into becoming a transcendent hero for the ages. After surviving a hellish existence on a sugarcane plantation and his subsequent escape from bondage, Williams encounters a different environment from the plantation while working as a cook's helper aboard ship, which at times is a life that is even harder than the one on the sugar plantation, Rhythmiotakis writes. However, Williams eventually becomes an excellent U.S. Marine, fighting against the cruel Barbary pirates. He goes on to distinguish himself in battle and even as a spy as well. In further adventures, he next works on a rug merchant's boat before it is suddenly shipwrecked off Greece. He then finds himself washed up on a beach near Athens, marking the next seminal turning point in his life, one that would allow him to help free an entire people, while his fellow men were still in bondage in the American South. Providentially, Williams was rescued by monks and taken to Abbot Simeon, who provided him shelter as he recuperated. Having already learned Greek on board the merchant ship, Williams begins to realize that he has landed in the midst of an uprising. the uprising that quickly becomes the War of Independence for Greeks seeking liberation from the 400-year tyranny under the Ottoman Turks, Rethymniotarchus relates. Along the way, Williams meets, works with, and fights alongside such grateful Hellenes as Lord Cochrane, Lord Byron, George Jarvis, and others. He participates in naval battles and the famous siege of Messalongi. He may have taken part in the liberation of Athens as well at the Battle of Petta in Epirus as part of a battalion of other Philhellenes and at the naval battle of Navarino. But this fictionalized historical novel is not just about one man's adventures, heroic as they might be, Rethymniotarchus states. It is about an odyssey of man born a slave who reaches the pinnacle of heroism in a land far away from his roots. And yet his adventures, while approaching a mythical status, pale in comparison to the emotional growth Williams undergoes. Slave to sailor to spy to battle-hardened hero, to shipwrecked victim, to lover, to seeker of truth. His voice is the voice of all slaves of the world, Rethymniotarchus adds.
James Williams and George Jarvis memorial stones can be found in the churchyard in the cemetery at the town of Argos, near the city of Nafplion. At present, it is unknown if their stones in Argos are over their actual tombs or if the great Philhellene heroes may have been interred elsewhere. After leaving America and giving their lives for the freedom of the Greek people in their struggle against the Ottomans, Williams and Jarvis were laid to rest far from home. But they were where they were meant to be, after fulfilling their mission to help Greece in its greatest hour of need. Dear friends, tonight, we honor James Williams, and we offer our thanks to his sacrifice. A sacrifice that transformed slavery into freedom. A sacrifice that many Greeks are now starting to learn about, to remember, and to honor. A thank you to a Greek hero.
A free bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends and dips his wing in the orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky. But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through his bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown, but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. Here he is. The seagull messenger has arrived and chases the crow away into the abyss of the universe. Calm, stillness, just one moonbeam. The shimmering white bird speaks like a human. Cry out, slave, when you are speechless. Suffer pain, slave, when you are invulnerable. Weep, slave, when you are untroubled. From the contradiction comes the beginning. No walls can be tolerated. None. Making a circle on the ceiling, the seagull rushes out. Inside the room, not a single feather except one that settles on the wounded man. Absolute silence. Then, a heartbeat of homesickness. From within the pools of his dark eyes, he sees himself leap out. A tall, handsome, strapping man, barefoot and wearing only tom breeches. The now becomes the then. Memories are coming alive in the torrid heat of a dock. A story begins even if damned slavery doesn't want it to.
Keep your head down, James. The guards will whoop you.
Luther, the seagull will take me to my own sky.
The sorceress says that slave heaven is the wind because the sun burns it.
I want my own sun too.
James, the sun burns our heads when we cut the sugarcane and it shrivels the peas of our field.
Luther, I'll find my own field.
Free farmland, boy? No, since there are no free homelands.
I'll find our own country one day. I'll call it Sunrise.
James, this whole blessed earth is the homeland for us slaves, the one with the chains, collars, the slave markets.
One day, I'll cry out that I'm free. Where is your God? Thomas shouts. My brothers, I am James, your leader. Listen to me. In Haiti, they've won their freedom because they all became one fist. We here in the village are only of two races, the Yoruba and the Yu. The time has come to unite. I have learned that Bobo, their leader, is hiding spears and bows and arrows in his cabin. Anyone who rises alone will be defeated. Javelins, axes, shovels, rakes become invincible only if we organize. In a few days the master has his birthday, and the only thing on his mind is to again hold the biggest feast in the area. Until then, let's fill the cave with our fellow villagers. Next Sunday, I will carry the message to our brothers on the grain farms, and they will tell it to our brothers on the tobacco plantations. Our uprising will begin on all plantations on the same day. Tomorrow at mealtime, grab each one of our brothers and tell them to come here next Sunday. If Bobo sees he's losing his followers, he'll join us. Don't let the drivers catch on to any of this, because then we'll be wiped out. My brothers, let's hurry before our women become rabbits. Until then we can hide the youngest women here in the cave and say that they died from mosquito sickness.
James dives into the silent river, the one that never reveals its secrets. The moss wraps itself around him. The trees stretch their branches, preventing his escape from the present, but the moon reflects itself forward, giving him purpose and hope. Slowly, everything changes in the watery element. The current swirls towards the rocks. With great effort, he manages to take hold of the bushes on the banks. The climb to the top of a slope is no easy matter. At the top, a horizon, a cliff, and a man in between. How far is heaven and earth from each other? 0. The contact between them, a feathery line called resurrection. Death is conquered there, should he believe it? But there is no death. It is simply a harbor in life. For the first time, he enjoys optimistic thoughts. His breaths of pure fresh air are probably to blame. The wind blows, the first unforgettable touch of freedom. As he touches a walnut tree, it bows to him. Yes, nature loves him, recognizes him, belongs to him. He stretches up his arms to the sky. I'm alive. I'm alive. I'm alive. The forest grows larger, and there are growing shadows everywhere, inside him and out. The brook flowing through the clearing quenches his thirst. Scraping away the leaves from a fallen branch, he fashions a sharp edge, like a spear with a rock. Inexperienced in hunting, he wanders back and forth aimlessly. Lucky for him, a doe is grazing among the bushes. An explosion of instinct. Leaping like a wildcat, he stabs the spear into its back again and again, as if the animal is at fault for the years of servitude. A fountain of blood spurts everywhere, splattering in his mouth. He chomps into the entrails, letting out howls like a wolf. There's no hate left, it's drained too. He is a human being, but from who will he ask for forgiveness? He tears off a large piece of flesh, worshipping it as if holding something sacred. Then nearby branches snap and something flashes in the coming darkness. He cuts up some flesh from the sides and quickly hides in the slit of a rock. Suddenly, a pack of wolves leaps out and push their snouts into the deer guts. Certain that he is safe, he removes the bones from the flesh with urgency. The pungent taste of raw meat provokes nausea. As he licks the bones, he notices the blood on him and on the snouts of the wolves. Was I a beast, or did I too become a beast? I am wiping off the blood from my pants. I am not afraid of anything. To hell with the caves. The safest place is not where I am hiding to be forgotten about, but where I am visible so they remember me. As his laughter echoes in the forest, the wolves wander back and forth searching for his own flesh. He takes something out of his pouch and pushes it deep in his pocket. A few moments of hesitation. Certain that the freedom of a slave begins with persecution, he now beats his chest. Should I fear wolves, or myself? Myself. His exit from the cave provokes an earthquake. From the rise on a boulder, he sees the forest, which seems haunted. The wolves begin their pursuit. Just a few feet away, the land ends at a cliff. He breathes deeply, his last breaths. All around nature is pulsating, the foliage bends aside, the moon reveals itself. I die a free man, he shouts. Father, where are you to admire me misery? From being at the right hand of the commanders. I have now sunk to being a miserable cook of the legendary USS Guerrier frigate with its 44 cannons and 400 men. Who would expect it? Who? The bottle shatters, thumping in all directions and shaking the floor. I only managed to kill 5 rats today. Hell, I was lousy today, old fart I am. Time, you bastard, how will I defeat you? I lost. Take my life now. Now. The ladder creaks again, and another man's hoarse voice interrupts. Cook, I was told you asked for me. Father Smith, I'm gonna die. Hear my confession. Don't curse. You're a survivor. Why the heck did Commodore Decatur take me with him, Father? So many cooks out there, and he chose this old drunkard? How many times will I tell you, calm down or else you'll go insane? I am crazy. Throw me into the sea. John, cast out Satan from within you. You are the best cook. Nobody cooks such a juicy beef stew. Who makes such crispy biscuits like you? Thanks to my lady's good recipes. So then, be patient. We have been traveling together for so many years. Oh, by the way, when do you expect us to get to Gibraltar? We set sail May 20th. If all goes well, we will anchor at the end of June. Why are you asking me, Father Smith? I am worried. The situation in the frigate is not good. A group of sailors is constantly challenging the black deckhands. I told Captain William Lewis that he must impose order because the 3 blacks are people of God and work harder than anyone. I reminded him as well about Captain Isaac Howe after the victory of the USS Constitution in Nova Scotia, Canada, in August of 1812. He said he never saw better fighters than blacks. They fight, he said, like devils. He meant, of course, James Williams. Do you remember how even though he was a runt of a man, he was the best first sponger in the 3rd cannon on the cannon deck? I can't even remember what I ate yesterday. How will I remember a black? Stop with the rum before it burns your brains out. Whatever you say, I will not allow intolerance on board. I shall speak to Decatur tomorrow. Don't do it, Father. If Decatur finds out that there is quarreling among the crew, he will take it out on all of us. But why do you worry about the blacks? In the South, they starve for bread, and here they have their plenty of food and drink. So, tell me, will you hear my confession today? You stink of rum again, John. Find a day when you're sober. Only when I die. So then, let's go to sleep. Finally, only the creaking of the ship and the moaning sounds of the sea are heard. James presses the cross to his lips. Damn you, God. Have you sent me to the seas of monsters? Is this your help? How many brothers could there be in the hold? A whole village of brothers, he whispers silently to himself and bumps his head in the barrel. How slight and brief the dream of freedom in these frigates of death. How many brothers drown before they ever reach the harbor? And if he manages to reach land, are there any cities of justice? He slaps himself again and again. His panic eases. At any sacrifice, he will ask for help from Father Smith. He will surely be moved to pity.
Commodore Decatur, we caught a thief, the boatswain reports. Call the midshipman here to me immediately, Decatur orders, and his wish quickly becomes reality. Midshipman George Bowes respectfully to him. Corporal, did I hear you correctly? A thief on my ship? We jailed him 4 days ago in the hold where the sails are kept. Did you write it in the logbook that day? No. Did you inform the captain? No. Disgraceful. From the start I told you that I demand to know everything. Lucky for you that you are still a greenhorn, otherwise I would punish you for disobedience. Speak now. Where did you find the black? He had hidden himself among the barrels. He attacked our cook. Is old man John well? Yes, the doctor immediately gave him ether. Boatswain David, someone did not do his job well when we were loading. I swear to you. With all due respect, I did my job well, he replies and removes his hat. Do not challenge me, Master David, or I will bring charges of mutiny against you as soon as we are in Gibraltar. Go ahead, you miscreants, let's see his mug. The hood is removed. The screams gathering in his throat explode from his mouth. I am a man, I am a man. How did you get into the hold? Speak, you bastard. Decatur shouts at him. I am a human being. Where are you from? I am a man. Respond to what I ask you, swine. I am a man. James stutters and spits blood.
A routine week comes to an end on board the frigate. In a room on the second deck, there at the edge of the stern, the light from an oil lamp is dancing the waltz of the sea. Decatur is drawing a course on the desk map with his protractor and ruler. Next to him the sextant, his parchment, and his feather pen await his touch. As he looks at the clock, expressions of nostalgia appear on his face. Just at the moment he starts to write something in the diary, someone taps at the door softly. Who is it? Captain William Lewis, Honorable Commodore. A tall man walks in, takes off his tricorn hat and bows. Commodore, may I trouble you? Master Lewis. From what I can hear, a great celebration is being held in the officers' quarters. I do not hide my envy of them. And I envy your calm. The day before yesterday, I narrated your story to the cadets about the First Barbary Coast War. If I am not mistaken, it was February 16, 1804, at 7 in the morning when you did the impossible. I am in awe how you attacked the port of Tripoli and burned the frigate Philadelphia that had been commandeered from us. Is it true that you and the sailors were dressed as Maltese and Arab fishermen so they wouldn't get wind of you? Put aside the compliments, Master Lewis. Tell me what is happening. I apologize. I am informing you that the black sailors have learned that we hold one of their brothers in chains. The boatswain and 2 or 3 sailors are constantly provoking them. I'm afraid a brawl will break out. Captain Lewis, you deal with the matter. I have more serious issues to deal with. In a few days, we arrive in Gibraltar. The Spanish coast has many traps. Our course must be flawless so we do not strike the reefs. I gave orders for 2 helmsmen on nights. I would also like to inform you that diarrhea and high fever have taken the life of the cook's assistant. What time? Did the cadets write it in their log? At the first ring of the dog watch. The cadet noted all the details. The priest Smith took his confession, and we threw him into the sea with his hammock. How will the cook make out alone? I told you we had to get a younger helper. Are you offering a suggestion, Master Lewis? Allow me to apologize again. I would offer a proposal. What would you say that the black fugitive help in the kitchen? In this way, we will help the cook and the black sailors will calm down. I will personally ask the bosun and his crew not to bother him. Decatur lights up his pipe. Master Lewis, do you assume the responsibility of your actions? I assume every responsibility. I want good meals for the sailors. I will of course assure unity among the sailors. Tell the steward to give the runaway clean pants and shirt. Make sure he washes up because he smells like a pig. Return to the officers' feast and tell them to be quiet. The sailors will think they are heathens. Commodore Decatur, the consuls greet you. A few days ago, Algerian frigates crossed the straits towards Algiers. Already the Algerian frigate Mashuda with 46 cannons and Captain Rice Hamadou has anchored off the coast of Spain at Cape Gata. The frigate Estidio has reached Cape Palos. Where did you learn of all this? The commanders ask. Their voices in unison. I have my spies. Decatur smiles, and as he rests his back on the armchair, he continues. Gentlemen, now we know what we will face. We will not fall like the mice into the trap. Surely there will be more frigates near them. Let's go directly to Algiers. After all, that's where everything will be decided. William Lewis interrupts. Decatur folds his hands over the map, smiling.
At the harbor of Gibraltar, the feast seems never-ending. In the taverns, the belly dancers surround everyone as the smoke of hookahs softly wafts through the windows. The salted meats, cheeses, and dates on platters are eaten as soon as they are served. And all this because the fleeing of the American fleet is considered a triumph. Already a frigate is coming into port to proclaim the happy news. And yet, a few miles farther away, the American fleet is slowly slashing through the rocky coast mercilessly. So what if the enemy thinks they are simply sailing peacefully to negotiate with the Aga of Gibraltar? Neither the seagulls nor the dolphins accompany the fleet. They sense that something dreadful is about to happen. The silent crew is on the upper decks with their shotguns ready to shoot. Within an hour, a massive Algerian frigate looking like a visitor from hell reveals itself from behind a rock. Surprise! The frigate's cannons are continuously spreading death, thundering at the enemy, collapsing boulders from the slopes of the coastline. Clouds of dust, clouds of cannon blasts, visibility zero. Decatur's frigate tilts to the right and left, as it seems the hull is about to be sliced in half. Sailors are holding on to the deck railings or by ropes on masts. In the kitchen hold, James is hooked in a barrel, and next to him John drinks rum in one gulp, banging his fists on the table as if it's the table's fault. With bulging eyes, he creates his own reality. He drinks the rum in one swallow, punches the table, and starts howling. June 17th, June 17th, hell, I've grown a year older. Black man, listen to the song of a battle, smell her gunpowder. I see it all from here. Hell, my leg is planted here firmly on your orders, Commodore Decatur. I am here, but in truth, next to you. In front of us is the Mashuda with the heavy bow, the naked masts. On its deck are men, some asleep, others smoking hookahs, sitting around. The guard on the highest mast is screaming, Americans, Americans. I can hear him, I can hear him. With their pointed beards and earrings, the Arabs are throwing themselves onto their ship's deck like mice. Hell, their scimitars reflect the sun. They are emptying the gun racks with the shotguns. Their leader is coming out of the hold, still half naked from sleep. Satan himself. Damned you, whatever you do, you will not get away from our frigates. Coward, you're raising your sails to escape to Algiers harbor. Bastard, you fell for it. Commander Decatur does not lose. Never. I'm sure he is sending the Constellation, our fastest ship, to come alongside and board it. Raise the sails, he managed it, he hit the Mashuda. Our cannons, pound them. Men, are you ready for the boarding? Mashuda, your days are numbered now, he shouts, as he coughs endlessly. James fetches a mug of water, but John tosses it away. Giving me water, you old fart? I am a man. Do you want me to lose my grief? Get this kid. I will die with it. Damned old age, this cursed leg. A strange impact shakes the frigate, and the trembling of the keel makes everything quiver. John kneels and tosses the table aside. Hell, the Constitution cut him off. We got there in time too. Now our bow is rubbing up against the Mashuda. Listen to the cannonball as they explode. Do not hide, black dog. If I had your youth, I would go out to fight. Whether you want it or not, this frigate is your home. Save it. Me, a slave? James fetches a mug of water, but John tosses it away. John pushes James like a sack to the first step. The black youth goes up one step at a time. Is it worth the risk for the sake of the whites? Blood from the upper deck is already running a torrent all the way to the infirmary. The enemy's frigate is revealed through the open portholes. Losing all hesitation, he grabs the sword and pistol of a dying man and rushes into the slaughter. Bullets from every direction seek flesh. Mortars pierce the boat. The enemy is jumping on the deck with the ropes holding scimitars and muskets. Inside the dense smoke, he rescues the bosun from an enemy sword. Next to him, 2 rows of Marines are spreading death. The rumor that Rice has met his end raises everyone's morale. The boarding of the Mashuda frigate takes place with ropes. The trumpet means the end, immediately after the surrender of the Algerians and the triumph of the Marines. James doesn't know if he should laugh or cry. Victory doesn't mean hundreds of dead bodies and beheadings. Is the devil hiding inside him, or is he the devil? Is the experience of slavery to blame, or is he born a killer? He has the feeling that God is sitting on his shoulders. He throws his sword into the sea and water turns red as if from envy. The sky is flushing red too. He punches through the dense smoke like it's tightening its grip. Inhibitions. His inhibitions are to blame for blinding his humanity. He runs to the hold. Onions, garlic, flour, and peas everywhere. The cook is sitting, naked from the waist up with a broken bottle in his hand. Slave dog, let me die. No, Master John. What will we eat? I should have done it then, killed myself. Why am I still alive? Why? Calm yourself. You are the best cook. Hell. I saw you when you were fighting. Where did you find such rage? I can't deny the anger of slavery since my birth. Bastard, that is how I was. Why? You are white. Fool, do you think slavery is yours alone? To hell with you and your stupidity. Black man, why did you save me? A voice sounds from the entrance. The bosun wipes the dirt from his face and belts his shirt. I dunno, James mutters. In your place, I would have killed you. John turns to James. No one knows Decatur like me. Lazy dog, peel 5 bushels of potatoes and cut up 2 bushels of onions. Go on. Do not flatter yourself as a big shot because on this day you acted like a hero. The black youth loads one sack over the other. Is the brute of a man John taking his side because he likes him or because he needs him in the kitchen? Why does no officer congratulate him? Why don't they call him to the feast set up on the deck? Unfortunately, a black is born in error, lives anonymously, and dies alone. No praise, only servility. To block out such thoughts, he dedicates himself to hunting a fly, which buzzes straight ahead at him. I am a hero. I am the king of dishes and pots, he smiles. At least, he is a hero somewhere, even if he does not like it.
Gentlemen, today, June 19, 1815, history will write of the victory in the sea battle of Cape Palos. The men burst into festivities, shooting in the air. We acted expertly. Instead of us going to battle with our heavy hull, I sent USS Eprovere, USS Spark, USS Torch, and USS Spitfire, our smallest and lightest ships, to assess the enemy frigate Estidio. Men, never thank your leader. He must thank you. I am glad because you were born victors, and you will die heroes. Once you step on the holy soil of the homeland, everyone will admire you. We conquered because our purpose is sacred. Tomorrow we will enter the harbor of Algiers triumphant. Placing his hat under his armpit, he goes down next to the 20 dead, all of them wrapped in the US flag. Whenever I come home after a mission, I see the leaves in the crown of the winner. Do you know what this is all about? The souls of men I lost. There is no death for the heroes. Just a walk in paradise. Have a good journey, our brothers. His eyes fill with tears, and he kisses the flag wrapping the bodies. Two men hold up the emaciated body of the priest who reads the funeral prayer, but who loses his train of thought at times. The shotguns say farewell, and the sea accepts the bodies by foaming sorrowfully. A moment of meditation. Each of them wonders what fate has in store for them. Will they rejoin their families? Life is an infinitely thin thread, so for how long will it stretch? The atmosphere on the frigate grows heavy, and the craving for feasting is lost. Everyone searches for isolation to ponder memories of their homeland. Decatur distances himself from the other captains and calls John to him. My friend, how do you feel after our victory? Admiral, I remembered the old days. I will set discipline before we enter the port of Algiers. They will soon bring prisoners of war. We'll put them in the warehouse, some on the deck. Plan so they have enough to eat. We'll need them in the negotiations. Rest assured. I will do my duty as always. Old man John, when I return, I'll suggest you stop sailing. If you do that, I will die. But you curse the very moment you became a cook. You are right, Commander, but where you love, you also hurt. I want to ask you something. What will happen to my assistant? Did you see that he fought like a hero? Will he return to America as a slave? Red clouds, thick and fluffy, spread out over the harbor of Algiers. Numerous ships are sailing towards its piers. In front are the captains and Decatur, ready for the negotiations with Omar Aga. Behind them the sailors are anxious about the coming festivities in the taverns. At the harbor the Armada's anchors pitilessly pierce the depths of the harbor. The masts are stripped naked, the sails are gathered up, the American flags are flying having proven themselves. In the Guerriere, the guards are relaxing to the sounds of an accordion and a harmonica. In the hold itself, as always, a gloominess because light never reaches there. The prisoners are arrayed in all corners, even on top of the sacks. John is indifferent to their curses and damnations. He quickly removes and throws away James' chains. Before he knows it, the boat bumps into the jetty where fishermen, merchants, beggars are sweltering in the sun's heat. Here too, the struggle for the daily wage never ends. but the aromas of food, the sweet air, the affectionate sun, provide a sense of euphoria that here the day always dawns. As he walks through the crowd, he enjoys the voices of the women and children, the vendors wrangling. He stops at the hunchback musicians. Sounds of the East from the tambourines, the oud, and the saz, which at times sound nostalgic, at times in love, at times in grief. What a delight! Suddenly, a short man wearing a fez and a patched left eye motions to him to turn. There are more questions, he simply accepts what comes. They end up in one of the taverns where sailors and officers of the Armada are entertaining themselves. Fragrant aromas of local foods emanate from the platters on the counters and casks of wine overflow. The most beautiful women in the city are swaying, playing the tambourines in their laps. James wanders from table to table, looking for the slave merchant. He imagines him fat, with bloated cheeks and blackened teeth. Surely his shirt will hang over his pants, while his belt will be worn out by scraping with the whip. He is distracted by a beggar under the ladder he is sharing with a dog who motions to him. A blind, toothless old man, just skin and bones with a cane as big as he is. The black youth recalls David, and his eyes well up. He steals a cup of wine and a loaf of bread from a table and shoves them under the old man's armpit. "Grandpa, eat some bread." "I know what it is to be hungry," he tells him, but as he turns away, the raspy voice of the beggar stuns him. "You are the slave on Decatur's ship, are you not? How do you know about me?" "This is yours," he whispers and gives him a rolled up paper. James reads carefully. "Go to the 5th house, across from the big well. Find Jonathan. Do not waste your time."
A wave rises and reaches the port of Algiers at lightning speed, beating at the rotten ship that is growing distant in the sea. In the web-filled cargo hold, between carpets, jars, and crates, James gets as comfortable as he can. Time is losing its meaning and his insecurities are revived as long as uncertainty dominates him. Is he free or not? Does the land hide paradise, or will he encounter new masters? What kind of people are the Greeks? Do they fight like panthers, or do they hide because they tremble in the face of death? Is he himself a conqueror, a rebel, or a runaway? He fights with pessimism over and over, and in the end, he overcomes it. He wears neither chains nor collars. What joy! Victory is his own. Shutting his eyes, he enjoys his own full moon, in his own sky, somewhere at the brink of a cliff. His removal from the cross of suffering at the plantation is now reality. In his mind there is finally plenty of room for new names and images. He will succeed. Let him welcome the beginning of the journey sparkling clean. He shaves himself with a knife and tears the rags he wears. He is finished with dirt and never again patches. Out of his rucksack, he takes out trousers and a vest. What is this rolled-up document doing next to the biscuits? Unrolling it with care, his cross on the necklace falls out. At last, they meet after so long. He kisses him passionately, because he is everything for him. The letters on the document seem like they are dancing in the dim light. He reads the text again and again, shaking his head to the left and right. His sweat is transformed into myrrh that soothes wounds in his hands. If he could only hide the document in a shell and throw it into the sea. Let all the brothers who have been held for so long on the seabed read about the miracle. No, no one dies, they live. He lies down feeling all-powerful. The floorboards change into a layer of feathers, the sack of tea becomes a pillow. I do have a name, I do have a name, he repeats. The letter slides from his hand, drops down and sticks to the cross. Contact, light, explosion, silence. The flame of the oil lamp goes crazy, it flares, and illuminates one by one the letters of the papyrus that will never vanish. To whatever shores the sea takes you, you will never find prison bars if you do not want to. You had to banish your rage because you never had a name. Now you are ready. Find yourself on the paths you've never taken. I wish you a fair journey, Master James. Commodore Stephen Decatur. Andreas, are you content with our wretchedness? James, are you in a bad mood again? How many times have I told you that I laugh to forget? I'm sick and tired of spending so many years traveling from Algiers to Nafplio. Tough. Nafplio is one of the prettiest towns in Greece. I have never seen it. Our master forbids us to disembark. To hell with the sea and its rotten boats. Hush, James, don't curse the sea. Disaster will befall us. I am not afraid of it anymore, Andreas. For 5 years now, I've seen neither pirates nor have sharks eaten us. Young un, the sea drowns us just once. James, you're the most stubborn man I've ever met. Something tells me that I'll soon lose you. Here, take the Iliad and the Odyssey with you. Thanks to this, you learned how to talk and write Greek. But this is your son's book. Doesn't matter. Andreas, I'm upset that you, the best teacher of Nafplio, turned out to be Hassan's deckhand. James, I had to forget what evil did to me. For years now, I pray to God to send me the lung-eating serpent, but he does not listen to me. Just yesterday, I thought about putting a stone around my neck and jumping into the sea. But the monks say that those who commit suicide do not go to paradise. There's no paradise or hell. Buddy, don't shatter my dreams. Paradise is where I will again meet my wife and my son. The conversation ends so that they can both accept their own truths. They encounter the thirst for life in the wealth of silence, one on earth and the other in the celestial realm. Andreas touches his beard and removes a strand of seaweed from his hair. I used to collect gold coins. Now I'm happy because I gather seaweed. You, James, are in a hurry to get rich to show everyone your strength. First, you must reconcile with your misery. Thank God that you are alive. Struggle even harder and let success find you on its own. So now that you are leaving, don't hide in any pasture like a sheep. Fight for the freedom of this land, and the time will come when you will buy the best fields. Unless you want to be a trader and get rich in one night. I prefer to die rather than become a traitor. Don't exaggerate, James, because someday you'll find yourself in a situation where you will betray too. Never. How many vows, in my life, so many lies. At least be a man of your word. But in case I don't see you again, do me a favor. You've got it, my friend Andreas. I always dreamed of my son becoming a chieftain. Become one for his sake. What's a chieftain? A chieftain means even your own pistols fear you. Andreas, have you forgotten that I fought beside Decatur? It's one thing to hold a pistol and quite another to be a leader.
The sun slowly climbs in the grayish-blue shades of a hopeful sky. This is confirmed by the seagulls and the holy doves that flutter in every direction. The tranquil sea caresses the lacy beaches of a land which is fragrant with thyme and sage. At the jetty of a harbor, stacks of barrels are all numbered with tar. On the beach, the salt slowly eats away at an overturned boat. The waves break gently over the pebbles of the beach, moving a half-naked man back and forth in the water. Neither the barking of a sheepdog or the bells of the surrounding sheep awaken James. Suddenly, two black-robed figures approach, wearing monastic hoods. They observe him from head to toe and cross themselves, panic-stricken. They enclose the sheep, tie the dog up, and run to the steps on the cliff. Just at that moment, the sun's rays aim their shimmer at their vestment crosses, making them sparkle. They look at each other wondering if it is a message or a random incident. They return to James and load him on their shoulders to climb towards the plateau of the olive groves and the green fields. At the edge of the slope, a whitewashed monastery with solid walls dominates with its imposing ramparts and narrow parapets. They reach the vaulted arch of the entrance, where they bang the door knocker at the gate with the double crossbars encased in metal. Doorman Monk Nikiforos. "We are the Vordonians, Parthenios and Eosif," they say in unison. In the doorway of the door, a monk with a hooked nose appears. "Why didn't you come through the hidden door? We have a visitor. Open up before somebody sees us." The squeaking of the door lock welcomes them into the courtyard. In the center, the dome of the church overlooks creation from up high. In the bell tower of the steeple the bells are eager to peal. Farther off, the water of a cistern is secretly murmuring. The fragrance of the incense mingles with those of the basil, rosemary, and mint in the pots, making sure that spring never ends here. To one side, the stairway leads to the two-story balcony, whose arches drown in honeysuckle, grapevines, and pincushion flowers. The cells are above, downstairs the dining hall, the vault, the host's office, and the library. On the opposite side, the arches covered with ivy shade, the warehouses, the barn, and monk's cells. A monk is watching them with an angry look as he sweeps the pebbles on the ground. "What does the enemy want in our monastery?" "Gardener Dionysus, we brought him from the beach," Raphael responds. "Could he be the Turk Herodin's man? He's been hanging around recently. If our secret is revealed, the voivodes, governors in Athens, will burn the monastery and throw our heads down the cliffs. Don't worry, Gardener. We will shoot back before they slaughter us. For the sake of the Mother of God. It was the will of God that we brought this stranger to the monastery. Well, since God spoke to you, what I say does not matter. But please inform Abbot Simeon," he tells them, and he scatters some manure into the garden pots. The noise behind the ivy terrifies the Vordonians. A cat starts to meow as if to warn them of something. Once they are certain they are not being watched, they bring James to the stairway of the balcony. In the corridor lined with cells of monks, an oil lamp is the only trembling light in the darkness. Their hatreds, anger, damnations, worries are all shattered, creating a mysterious euphoria where all is forgiven, is blessed, and seems eternal. A door opens halfway. "What's wrong, my children?" a hoarse voice from within asks. "Abbot Simeon, we found a black man on the beach. We felt sorry for him and brought him with us," Raphael answers. "Well done to you both. You behaved like men of God. Do you think he is Herodin's man? Whoever he is, we will care for him. Tell host monk Antonios to lay him down in our guest quarters," he responds and locks his door. Silence returns to the landing. Outside, the church dome reflects the light of day. Sunbeams lick the stones in the courtyard, where the wild pigeons peck at the crumbs. The sound of the cimantron, the wooden bell, interrupts them. "James, it's time for the Psalms of the Supplications. Let's go ahead to the icon of the Lady of the Angels. You should change clothes, because we will eat in a while. I am not hungry. My child, do not punish yourself for something that you are not. If you want to liberate your people, first empty your soul of the dregs of slavery. I'm not a slave, stupid. I had my own plantations. Then you should have already liberated your brothers. Abbot, take heed, I will hurt you. Keep silent, my child, for the devil is continuously speaking inside you. However, say what you want. Jesus forgives his prodigal son." "Which Jesus? The one who rained stale manna on us? You are both liars. My son, how much rage does slavery ultimately endure?" he asks him, and slowly descends the stairs. In his anger, James's temples are throbbing. The abbot has forgotten to pay him in full. Slavery is like existing in oblivion. Nobody takes him into account. He breathes, walks, talks, he's a man too. He throws punches into the air, cursing the sacred. After he takes leaps down the stairway, he starts kicking at the wall of the church. A flash of light pierces the window and hooks itself to his shoulder. Is it an invitation or a random event? He peers into the interior through the partly open door. Where does that glow come from? The chandelier is dark and only a few candles are flickering. Who is flooding the skeletal bodies of the monks with such passion who are glowing as they cross themselves? Do prayers give birth to the mysterious light? What is this light? Can it change the world or just light it up? He gradually weakens as the mind of man cannot bear such questions. Hatred rises in him again. Father, you told David that only I will have the Holy Bible. Why do all have one? I grew up in lies I will live. How many liars does the earth hold? How many? He returns to his cell, a room with the same silence as he once lived in the cabin. On the bed, the clothes of labor, shabby pants and a patched shirt. Rage constantly comes and goes, shivering down his back. Lucky for you, I need the money. I don't want any white person to talk to me. I'm James, the hero. I am James, James. He repeats his name in the hope his insecurity diminishes.
In the library's reading room, the scorch marks of fire recall its passage. Burnt manuscripts, woven fabrics filled with holes, a broken chandelier swinging back and forth, hanging but never falling. Below the cupboard, filled with heirlooms, a staircase reveals a cell. The crucified Christ hangs on the wall, as if he is holding the ceiling up with outstretched hands. The lamp flickers. On the table, the basil branch slowly sips the water in a jar. They sit in the wicker chairs, and the minutes pass by without conversation until the stairway starts to creak slightly. 5 children, their hair shaved, wearing short trousers and torn shirts, kiss the hand of the abbot. On the cheek of the older boy a tear carves a path without return. Sit down around me. Yorgos, why are you crying? Simeon asks, stroking his hair. The landlords went to get the tax from Ahmet's house, my best friend. They killed his father and his 2 brothers. His mother is staying in our house. If she doesn't pay the tax by tomorrow, they will kill her too. Do not be disturbed, my son. I will send what they are asking for to Ahmet's mother. Really, Abbot Simeon? Ahmet's mom is a Muslim. And what does that matter, my little Yorgos? She is a human being too, and a mother too. Who will take her the money? Me, James interrupts. Will you manage it, my child? The abbot asks him. I can turn day into night and night into day when they let me. So. Very good. Early in the morning you will go to Athens. Ahmet's house is among the huts under the Acropolis. But seriously, why do you dare do this? You know neither the city or its people. I know what it's like to grow up without a mother. You break my heart, James. You speculate on the simplest of matters, hence the most profound. I will tell you something. The greatness of my people is not found in the statues or buildings. The material goods are rotted by time and fire turns them into ash. The majesty of a culture lies in its philosophy. Yorgakis, tell me the saying of Plato we learned last week. The first and greatest victory is to conquer yourself. To be conquered by yourself is of all things most shameful and vile. James, would you ever sacrifice yourself for your homeland? I have known two homelands, America and Decatur's ship. The first homeland I pain for. Neither the rivers nor the mountains are to blame if people have slaves, my brothers. As for the second, I almost got killed, but I love that ship because I could see a clear sky from there. Your Gakis, tell us what Pericles, the founder of democracy, said. Of course, Abbot Simeon, he shyly answers. For heroes have the whole earth for their tomb, and their existence is not only revealed by the inscription of a column in some part of their homeland, but also in foreign places there is an unwritten memorial of them, carved not in a work of art, but rather in the hearts of each of the people. Did you hear that, James? The immortals are those who live in our souls. I know you were wealthy and did not suffer at the hands of slave merchants. But do tell the children what slavery means. The black youth gets confused. People, blacks and whites, masters, guards, slave merchants, and liars, gather in the places of his memory and battle there until the final fall. Slavery is living with fear that you never see, he blurts out unconsciously, watching the ants crawl on the floor. Simeon touches the mold on the wall. The moldy plaster of a basement breaks down more easily than good plaster. Starting in the basement, the walls will break down and the mansion of slavery will collapse. One day will be marked by a fire that will incinerate evil. The war drums will thump. The cannons will thunder. The banner will be raised from the highest peak. The revolution is starting soon. I'll raise the flag. I am a leader. James exclaims excitedly. You do not deserve this, my child. Jesus arrived in Jerusalem on a donkey, not with a golden coach, as you dream of. Your Gakis, my little friend. All of you go to sleep. Today, I wanted to introduce you to Master James. Will you say good night to me with our song? The children humbly kiss his hand. The abbot's eyes fill with tears as they climb the stairway hand in hand singing. My little moon, twinkling so brightly, light my way to walk there safely. So I can go to my secret school frequently, to learn my letters, to learn God's matters. Since early in the morning a breeze permeates with the fragrances of thyme and sage, spreading out from Piraeus to Athens. Are the mountains rejoicing about the coming news? For the first time the sky teems with every kind of bird flying madly from one tree to another. Even James wonders why so many sparrows are flying to the olive grove outside the monastery. Today the job is not a chore even as his hands bleed from uprooting the weeds. It's a day of joy. He memorializes the date of March 25, 1821 by carving it on the trunk of an olive tree. Finally, after so many days of hard work, he is being paid and will depart. In the afternoon, he will go to Athens to buy pistols and a rifle. Where is Andreas to admire him as a chieftain? How many villages and towns will he liberate, he wonders. Suddenly, a woman wearing a scarf walks past him. Her long dress accompanies the movement of her plump hips. The pleasure of seeing her takes him from tree trunk to tree trunk until the threshold of the gate. Upon hearing her delicate voice, he is numbed by a craving to have contact. Uncle Simeon, I have good news. Bishop Yermanos of Old Patras raised the banner of the revolution. The towns will soon be aflame. At the monastery of Hosios Lucas in Livadia, the chieftains Athanasius Theakos and Vasilis Buskos have declared war. Kalakatronis has gathered 6,000 brave lads to take Tripolitsa. Great is the grace of the Holy Mother. My daughter, did you find out when the revolt will start in Athens? In about a month, the men will come down from the outlying towns. They've hidden the cannons in the stables of my cousin. Uncle, do we have enough wheat and oil for them to eat? Where will we hide them? Glory to God, we have wheat and oil for the whole country. We have a month ahead of us to build 2 underground cells for our lads. I will also strengthen the southern walls that were cracked by the earthquakes. We will also make a hole here on the roof to pour lead and hot oil on anyone who dares to approach. Will you do it all by yourselves? The fishermen will not help. I have a worthy lad from abroad. Uncle, do what you can. For now, excuse me. We have to feed the battalion of the Philhellenes who arrived yesterday. James, the Apostle Paul said, "This is the love that led Jesus Christ, the only Son of God, to the cross so that every person who recognizes his need for God can now freely reach him." Do you understand? No. My child, the time has come. Will you turn me over to the slave traders? The revolution is beginning in this land. The battles in Athens are becoming ever more fierce. Anarchy is arising. You are not going anywhere. You will stay here. No, I will leave. I will pay you twice as much salary as long as you stay. Soon someone will come. Then you are going somewhere for yourself, for me, for the rebels. A mission for heroes. Do not ask me for details. With the money you take, you will make a life for yourself. Abbot Simeon. I will stay even without the money. My child, are you not the one who wants to be a hero? Yes, that is me. All right then. Get undressed and then you will wear the most expensive clothes, he says, and gives him a salvari, a pair of baggy pants. The doors of the church are sealed shut. The windows are covered with mist as the chanters passionately sing. James enters the baptismal font. Simeon pours oil into the water and cuts off a tuft of his hair. My child, we are all his servants. God came into you. He ordered you to save your Gakis. You gave him the right to become one with him. You are the hero of your life. Let the wind open the way to virtue. I baptize you a Christian. Axios. Worthy. Axios. Axios. The time is coming, yes. The abbot sprinkles him with holy water and applies virgin olive oil on him. Out of death, resurrection. James shuts his eyes. The doors of his heart open wide. A shadow takes flight inside him, striking all corners. Whispers, smiles, exclamations. Who are you? Where are you? He wonders, but inside him, all is calm. And then a shadow leaps from the dome of the church toward the sky. Have a good journey, alabaster dove. Come back again.
Why does all of Europe concern itself with Missolonghi? It is the impregnable fortress of freedom, the yearning of the Sultan for years. If it is captured, he will have the 2 major ports in the country. The port of Piraeus to control the east and Missolonghi to control the west. If we liberate Athens, Omer Vryonis will be obliged to come here again. The people of Missolonghi will gain time to resupply better. Commander Karaiskakis has already begun the raids in Athens. Day by day, he is gathering brave lads from the outskirts. The American Philhellene turned Greek freedom fighter, General George Jarvis, pushes the envelope to the center of the table. I did what you asked. Faith, patience, persistence, the triple play of success. Simeon stretches his arms up high. Like an arrow, his gaze pierces the beams of the ceiling, and then breaks through the roof tiles. A lightning bolt is born from the earth, directed towards the sky. Momentum, incarnation, and revelation. His voice silences, trembles, then dares, you. You have again sent an angel to your enslaved people. For them, for their children, for their grandchildren. Your simple miracles give birth to so much hope. His fingers drag the air as he imagines that he is climbing toward him. In his excitement, he falters, but James helps him sit on the chair. Dear Jarvis, God enlightened you. God brought you to us at the right time. Am I wrong? His aged voice wavers. Simeon, why do you worship exaggerations? He answers and gives him water from his flask. Only overstating matters gives birth to faith. The people cannot endure any longer. Nobody can compromise with misery. Calm down, Abbot. Before I came, I mailed letters to notables in my country. They are unable to believe that patriots such as Spiros, Georgius, Cosmas, Anastasis, Gerasimos, Constantine, and more than 19 others sacrificed themselves next to our General Eaton battling the Mamelukes. At one time, my compatriots were fighting against the British colonials. We too felt the meaning of waking up and begging for night to come. So be aware of this. I promised help to Mavrocordatos. Do you swear an oath to me that you did not speak about the envelope? Swear now. I swear. Glory to God. Your envelope will reach its destination without anyone knowing. Trust me, my child. At any sacrifice, we need a tireless man of labor to deliver it to our contact. Only a person who has suffered has the daring of the immortal. I am sure it was God's will that James arrived. He was an unripe grape, pierced by crows, but now has ripened. I have taught him life in our land, our history, the language of the enemy. If he gets dressed as a dervish, he will not be noticed by anyone. The black youth stomps on the floor. He is haunted by a delusion. He imagines himself wandering among well-dressed people in town squares and huge buildings that pierce the sky. Some push him, others chase him with chains. He searches for the recipient of the letter, having as his guide his instincts, the faithful companion of the hunted. Can a former slave deal with the unknown alone? No. Before he can object, the cry of refusal chokes in his vocal cords. Why do his lips grow numb? So, what invisible power is obstructing him? Where are you from, James? Jarvis asks him. From Baltimore, sir, he mutters, drenched in sweat. Are you jesting with me? You, from America? Yes, of course, sir. I worked on a sugar plantation so that some could sweeten their stomachs. Are you a runaway? James hesitates. The vampires of slavery inundate his thoughts. At times, the plantation mills screech, and other times the whistles of the guards. Maybe this white man knows Richmond or is the son of another master. His fingers press the table hard even if it hurts. Well then, yes. I am a runaway. You can write that on a hot iron on my forehead. Calm down. Simeon, James is right. In the South, blacks suffer the passions of Christ. In Washington, along with my classmates, I became a fist to combat slavery. They are all the sons of mighty lawyers, doctors, and diplomats. Their parents agreed to take former black slaves as their servants. They dress in attractive clothes, they live in clean surroundings, and sleep in their own beds. Do you believe it, James? So, have people changed? They change when they want to. A number of lawyers have already brought lawsuits against the slave owners. Tell me, James, how much do you hate my country? I was almost killed for its sake. I fought on Decatur's ships, Master Jarvis. You fought for a nation that tortured you. I grieve for my America. I watered her with my sweat, and she fed me and quenched my thirst. Our fields are not to blame if the master uproots our okra and corn. Not even our well dried up deliberately. The guards threw dirt into it. Would you sacrifice yourself for the sake of this letter? He asks, clutching the envelope. I grew up on a plantation. I lived on a ship. Now I live and breathe at a monastery. I too have the right to live even though the abbot tells me that death does not exist. If you were to go to Tripoli, a very distant town, how much money would you ask for? None. I have touched coins twice in my life, sir. The first, the sea swallowed them up from me. The second, the clothes I bought with the coins, I threw them away into the depths of the sea. I only want the wages of my sweat in the monastery. Tomorrow the abbot will pay me and I will find my fortune elsewhere. Jarvis pushes the envelope towards James. Convince me that you are able to find its recipient. I promise you that after doing this, you will battle alongside me for the liberation of Athens. No, no, no. I am leaving. James is indifferent to beliefs about bravery and moral values. Tomorrow, he alone will decide the meaning of his life's course. Tomorrow, he'll buy a rifle and climb up to the mountaintops beside the rebels. Glory will make him rich. But then again, the ecstasy of the moment can never be enough. For the first time, whites are pleading with a black slave. Where are his fellow villagers who raise him up on their shoulders? Suddenly, a breath wafts on his neck. He turns sharply and sees the crucifix on the wall. His thorny wreath triggers his thoughts. What pain! He visualizes a cemetery, somewhere in a burnt valley. He steps on tombs of slaves without gravestones and flowers. How many dead slaves weigh down the earth? The count is immeasurable. He hears underground sighs. Be our hero. Do it. Can you? Before he can answer, the noise coming from outside the vision brings him back to reality. Now the staircase is squeaking for the last time. Dust is rising from the chair where Jarvis was sitting. Simeon, all masters are the same. He left without hearing my final answer. He angrily shouts and strikes the table. Calm down, my child. I replied to him, for you. I decide for what I do. James, the envelope will bring you one step closer to freedom. I am free. You will be free when you make others free. You whites talk with puzzles. I wager that Jarvis is setting a trap to send me to the slave merchants. You are wrong, James. He is the same rubbish, like all of them. Watch how you speak. God hears you. Then, let God come here to punish me. James, chieftains do not say farewell, because they will meet again either here or up above. Simeon, did you just call me a chieftain? He stutters as his eyes well up in tears. Soon you will become one. Forward. Let's go up the stairs. He silences him and plunks the envelope into his hands. The man places his helmet on the rock. His white hair glows like a halo. He nestles the pistols tightly in his gilded belt. He breathes in all the air as if it belongs to him. Call me Kolokotrones, not Lord, he says angrily and caresses his curly mustache. No matter how I call you, no rock can hold you, not even the sky, Allegheny replies and takes out the letter. Why did you bring the enemy, instead of the American? James is a friend of Jarvis. He is our spy. He has traveled many miles to get here. Big deal. Nothing's wrong with his feet, and no fever has brought him down. American, read slowly and clearly without mistakes. James coughs a couple times to cover up his embarrassment. With boldness, he emphasizes each syllable as if it is his own letter. I come back to the land of Aristotle, Plato, and Socrates. My heart is wounded to see dead villages. I left, but I came back again. Greece does not need soldiers. If they are united, 1/10 of the armed Greeks is enough to be victorious. What you need is money to buy footwear and overcoats for the shivering soldiers. And food. A ship different from the others, will soon be added to your fleet. I have the honor to tell you that my money will be available to you within days. With respect, George Jarvis. Tell me, black man, why are you people helping us? What the hell do you want from us? Calicatroni shouts. Jarvis loves your country because he loves freedom, James replies and hands him the letter. Damn you. Tell the truth. You tell me why you came, so I don't chew you up and spit you out. The barge sank, and I became a castaway at St. Spiridon of Piraeus. I was born an orphan. A wife and children I have not. I want to become a chieftain, to be remembered. Lord of Moria, few love our homeland, like Jarvis and James, Taliganes interrupts. So you've become a softy like your sheep? From a chieftain I found myself a butcher, to sell meat to live. Whoever wants to fight, grabs a rifle and gets out there. Jarvis wears a fustanella. In his belt he has 2 pistols like yours. I tell you this. Me, James, who never lies. Foreigner, do you ask if an ant can see us? When I ask something from the Virgin Mary, I look continuously up at the sky. So that means there is life up there. Who's crazy enough to make a wish and look at the dirt? In the dirt we only bury, in heaven we seek. You, a black man out of nowhere, you came and brought us the resurrection. Resurrection? Do not repeat that word. Hey, where did they find you? Did you manage to deliver me the envelope, or did you not? Whatever brings hope is called resurrection. And how do you know what the letter says? It is not yours. Chieftain, Lord of Moria, I was saying you might not come, Taliganes identifies him. Do his pistols smell of gunpowder? You, who pretends to be a spy, do you know how to use pistols? I handle the sword, like no one else. The farmer knows the use of the hoe, but he knows the shovel too, and the rake. That's the only way to plow his fields properly. The same for the chieftain, he must know it all. Anyway, you do not have the face of a warrior. My name is James. I'm not afraid of anyone. You dare to argue, stranger? If you were a leader, what would you say before the battle? That the plain will be bloodied. Are not you afraid of death, black man? No.
A church bell peals in mourning. Hordes of crows steal the innocent air. James bends over so they don't fly into him. Idiot. Are you afraid of crows? Jarvis angrily bursts out. They're taking strolls inside and outside Richmond's plantation. You coward, you've lost what you've accomplished these days. Shut the hell up now, because we're going to meet Chieftain Yorgos Karaiskakis. Be careful not to talk back, because he curses at the slightest thing. Go on, he says and grabs his vest, pulling him forward. Why do white people get pleasure and they insult others? He transforms the dust from his footsteps into a figure of himself. He punches it, he tears his hair out, he strangles it until it vanishes and returns to earth. He swears he isn't just passing through life, and that he won't die hanging in some prison. As soon as they reach the pillars of Olympian Zeus, he looks suspiciously at the men wearing the kilt-like fustanelles and the long whiskers who are setting up the cannons aimed towards the city. He feels an unbearable jealousy, because everyone welcomes and congratulates Jarvis only. He wonders what they would answer if he asked them, "Do I exist?" Suddenly coming into view is a dark-skinned man with a thick mustache, gold-embroidered vest, a blood-spattered fustanella and 3 pistols still smoking in his golden belt. "Who do you think you are, you wastrel, wearing a kilt and going for a walk with our enemy?" he yells at Jarvis. "Brave Karaiskakis, I let my mustache grow and you don't recognize me anymore?" The 2 men embrace each other, slapping. "American, where did you get that black man? You got him for charity?" My friend, he's a spy from Baltimore. A black man from America? Jarvis, you, like all of you, are white as milk. The assurances from Jarvis spread enthusiasm. America is roaring in the heroism of the Greeks. People of letters and newspaper publishers are pushing the government to aid in fundraising. In the assemblies of European nations, they are already discussing reinforcements for the revolution. The warriors are breaking out into shouts of joy, clinking their mugs and shooting in the air, provoking death. In the spoils, James once again feels like a foreign body. He gently touches the tree and talks to it as if it is his only consoler. Tell me first what it's like to be born free, Master Jarvis. You answer me what it's like to be born a slave. The black youth stretches his arms forward. The moonlight cuts the scars of his wounds like a blade. The suppressed screams in his insides leap out like an invisible fist that shakes the columns of the temple. Just a few breaths until he can find his peace. Then gasps. In the morning you wake up to kill your body. You sleep at night to kill your soul. They tell you that there is spring, winter, autumn, summer. All seasons are the same in the dungeons, in the holds, in the fields, because time dies before you do. You are the living dead. Stop it, James, stop. I don't want you to tell me anything else. I am not a tyrant. Everywhere and always there are visionaries. I arouse the students of my country. Congressman Dwight, Webster, Cook, Farrelly, Houston, Bayliss, Clay, and Edward Livingston are already pressuring the country to intervene. Dance balls in Boston, in New York, Philadelphia, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania are already being held for the Greek Revolution. Fundraisers were started at Yale and at Columbia College in New York. Even the workers in Pittsburgh are saving their dollars for food. A friend of mine wrote that schoolgirls in New York and Pennsylvania dedicate Saturday afternoons to sew clothes for the women and children of the Greeks. So much love for a foreign country? So then, why do you torment us? You ask the question I did not want. They say that all sorts of foxes circulate in an unfenced vineyard. The War of Independence with the British gave the opportunity to traders and the greedy to steal the fortunes of the dead and the weak, to build farms and plantations. No one was serious about them since they all had their problems. Gradually, they became the masters of their territories. Nobody could control them. As long as agriculture and their factions developed, they needed labor for a price of a piece of bread. They maintained the slave trade of shame their ancestors had started, since no patriot would accept being flogged, or wear a collar or work like a dog, Jarvis says, and after catching sight of a wild goat at the edge of the cliff, continues. A cliff made me wear a fustanella. When I visited the Sulliot people on the mountaintops of the north, I reevaluated myself. Those people are like the Spartans. Starting in childhood, they struggle against cold, hunger and wolves. An elder one day told me a story. In one of their regions called Zalogo, 60 Sulliot women were surrounded by the Turkish enemy. In front, the enemy, behind them, a cliff. Instead of surrendering, they started dancing in a circle with their children in their arms. With each round, and one by one, they leapt from the cliff. The black youth remembers an old story. In his mind, he builds the castle of Cape Coast, on the Gold Coast of Ghana. Thousands of slaves are jam-packed into the dungeons. The guards whip them to form lines in the underground tunnel that leads directly to the ships. 40 women grab their children and climb to the top of the tower. They form a fierce circle, dancing and singing until they're hoarse. The wind shreds their clothes to pieces. A storm of their tears becomes rain, freshening the sea. Jumping into the sea one after another, they shatter on the rocks, finally free at last. Master Jarvis, I'm going to fight with the Suliots. I'm going to take up a weapon. I'll wear a fustanella so everyone can learn who the hero is.
Dear Philhellene, I am Mavrocordatos, the leader of the mission and the Greeks. With which friend of Jarvis do I have the honor of talking to? I am James Williams of Baltimore. Your friend sends me to fight at your side. He has even given me this letter for you. Mavrocordatos reads with pomposity. To the leader of the Greeks. Master James Williams is the son of a great landlord. He has traveled from Baltimore, his only mission to support your freedom. He's the best spy I've ever met. With esteem, George Jarvis. Gentlemen, I understand your awkwardness. It is understandable that you have never heard of James Williams, the famous spy. Thanks to him we learned how many cannons the enemy had on the Acropolis, and we liberated Athens. In addition, he has already spent a large portion of his fortune for your struggle. Capsulus, who can verify to us that he is not a spy, the leaders respond. So, are you all willing to swear on the Bible that among us there is no mole wandering about? Who would have expected that the chieftain Varnakiotis would betray us? Shut your mouths and act like God's people, so I don't cut off your tongues. Mavrocordatos pushes aside the smoke from his pipe and responds to James in a pompous tone. Esteemed Philhellene, I confess that you have shown unprecedented bravery in the Battle of Peda. Thank you. I was seeking you out to tell you about the enemy's ambush. What you've given us is more valuable than a room in a Parisian hotel. American, I have affection for you because you and your friend are straightforward men. So, I'll give you some advice, too. Do what you do for this land, but be aware that only the common folks will weep over you. The educated ones will make you a statue someday, and even that will be deficient. I myself do not want statues that are gouged by the wind or laurels that dry out in the sun. Let me be remembered as a mustachioed man, who fought like everyone else. Marcos, I went to the best schools and colleges, but there they didn't teach me that you become a man among people. Your story will be written, whether you are killed or you survive. As for me, my story will be forgotten, because I'm not white, James interrupts. Batsaris gives the order to begin the assault. The enemy is lined up in countless rows. The Jarvis battalion provokes enemy breaches on the side. In man-to-man combat, logic gets lost. James kills one after another. Who is he? Where is he? Why is he alive? Is he fighting the whole world or himself? Is he eviscerating his master or the plantation guards? The Turkish-led Egyptians retreat to the forest, but he and a Suliot warrior stake the banner of victory into a corpse. Kisses, cries of victory, gunfire in the air. There is no end to hatred. He grabs a cutlass and joins those who are chasing after the enemy. At the remote chapel of St. Demetrius, the wounded enemy crawling into the bushes are beheaded. The stream is now a purple road of dismembered heads and butchered bodies. James celebrates his achievement with his cutlass held high, even heaven fears him. The blood of butchery drips down his cheek. He trips and stumbles. The cutlass pierces the grass and it drips a bitter dew. He pinches himself but cannot feel his own flesh. Is he a human or a demon? The return to the barricade is delayed because of the piles of bodies strewn on the field. There, the dead are loaded into carts. The smell of blood is distressing. As Jarvis is washing off the blood from his elbows in a cistern, he speaks to James without emotion. After the liberation of Athens, I went my way. It was April 22nd when I visited Hydra. Is it the whitewashed houses brilliantly lighting up my darkness, or is it the love of the Tumace and Bulgaris families that made me feel human? Whatever it is, I set sail on the brig Themistocles, whose captain was the Frenchman Raphael. I was the only American, the rest of the crew were French and Greek Hydriots. We sailed to liberate Chios, the island of mastic and sea captains. I was sure I would send my father the banner of victory. In vain. The massacre of Chios will mark me forever. The men of the Sultan led by Kara Ali massacred civilians. I saw pregnant women eviscerated, and their children cut in half. I thought I was stepping on land, but I was stepping on bodies. I saw a soldier cut an old man's ears off, another one taking his scalp. I threw away my rifle and wandered off, without knowing why. When all was finished, I saw a simple Turk, a peasant, crying over the Greek bodies, shouting, seeking forgiveness from Allah. I saw Greek mothers and fathers shouting to God to open the heavens, so their dead would fall near them again. I wanted to send a blank letter to my father and all the diplomats in the world. That's the earth they handed me. The land of empty people. When I got back to Hydra, I burned everything I had and locked my house. I swore to defend those who want to live. Before I came to Greece, Dr. Howe from Boston told me that only a treacherous disease would kill me. I know that in a few years I will be punished for my sins. I know that soon I will die. Jarvis, no horror of a disease will kill us. I will be punished for my passivity of so many years. So much slavery in the world, and I was sitting on my couch. Let me be punished for what I knew, but I did not do.
Suddenly, another dimension comes and this time it stays. Time moves forward to the future. The cave is transformed into a room in an infirmary on the island of Poros in the Aegean. There, a black man is resting his head on a pillow. The slamming of the shutters by the wind dissolves his memories. History has nothing more to tell him. The blanket pulls itself aside on its own, revealing James' withered face. James, my brother. Old man Georges from the cafe said that he has a customer, a black American, a brave lad tall as a cypress tree. We were sure it was you. Why did you go and try to stop the fight between two thieves? In the end, you were the one stabbed. You never tamed your passions. They gave birth to you, and they will kill you. The cafe owner said you were drunk. You were telling him that after Missolonghi you became a fisherman and met the British Admiral Cochrane. He says you set sail with him on the frigate Carteria of the Greek fleet, the first, he says, motorized frigate. Paul Maria Bonaparte, the nephew of the great Napoleon, took a liking to you and made you a cook at the officers' council. You took part at the naval battle of Navarino. But, by God, I have known so many blacks, known and unknown, but no one like you. You met so many famous people. Now, you are in Poros Hospital, on the small island near Athens. The clinic was established by Dr. Howe. He was the best doctor because he was first of all a human being. He said he would do it, and indeed he did. James manages only a whisper. The ray of light from the hallway pushes through a husky man. His helmet glows, then blurs, it too feels sadness. James stares at the wide shoulders and whispers. Colicotrones. Did you recognize me, black man? I came to see you, he responds and stops at the edge of the bed without exchanging glances with the others. Foreigner, you're a brave lad like no other. Say something. The world is a small place for whoever has God inside him. You are a wild beast. They may have chained you, but you never wore them. This was all an evil thought and nothing else. Anyway, Jarvis is your brother. He moved heaven and earth to bring me here. Forward women, let the moment be holy, he shouts and throws a bulging pouch at them. The daughters shave James carefully and apply lavender water on his cheeks. Marigo pulls a uniform of a Greek chieftain out of the pouch. As soon as the shirt gently covers his wound, it ceases to bleed. The woolen trousers cover his legs to the ankles. The waistband that straps around the waist reaches below the knees. The gold-embroidered red vest stands out in the dim light. The clogs with the tufts honor his toughened feet. The red fez rests on his head. Finally, Jarvis buckles a gold-plated belt with a sword and gunpowder flask on him. The thick eyebrows of Colicotrones join so that he reveals no emotion. Incredible! A foreign slave fights for the freedom of a foreign country. Every struggle for freedom, a world struggle. The land is filled with parasites, fake heroes written about on pages. How many unknowns fight for the good without recognition? Infinite. He kisses one of his pistols and slams it into James' belt. With his austere demeanor, he strides to the door. I will tell you what no one has ever told you. James, may the Holy Mother keep you well for all you have done for us. As of today, you are a chieftain, Axios. Worthy one, he roars and disappears into the mist. James' groan shakes all the black souls in heaven. They stand side by side and bow down for the struggle against chains and collars. The blanket gets thrown off. Let him appear as a hero. Now the wound is flowing a stream of blood. The uniform becomes purple. His breaths become sharp, short, at times frozen, at times hot. Marigo's voice is lost. Jarvis presses his head on the bloody chest of James. My good friend, our whole life is the few seconds before the great journey. Whatever you were, now you have become a chieftain. I did it. I am James. You are my hero. I tell you this, me, the son of a diplomat. Catch me, people. Grab me, people, so you can remember me. I have a name. I am James, a hero.
He walks on the waters of the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool, his most shallow sea. No sharks, no jellyfish, no swordfish anywhere. No one sees him, not even the barking dogs. The Capitol reminds him of the Acropolis, the temple of wisdom and democracy, not the master's mansion. On the steps blacks and whites are sitting together. Who said that wisdom is only for the learned and renowned? Halfway up the steps, men in suits, a priest clad in dark clothes, both unfamiliar and familiar to each other, feel the humanity on their skin like his caress. But no one can reach the passion of a man in a suit with a narrow mustache, who is aflame with fervor standing at the microphone. James, unnoticed by anyone, moves through the assembled and reaches in front, watching in awe.
Happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. Five score years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. And so we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. And so we've come to cash this check, a check that will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. We have also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. This sweltering summit of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until that is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not an end, but a beginning. Those who hope that the Negro needed to blow off steam and will now be content will have a rude awakening if the nation returns to business as usual. There will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundations of our nation until the bright day of justice emerges. But that is something that I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to a distrust of all white people. For many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is not in our hands. They have come to realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone. As we walk, we must make the pledge that we shall always march ahead. We cannot turn back. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of the unspeakable horrors of police brutality. We can never be satisfied. As long as our body is heavy with the fatigue of travel, cannot gain lodging in the motels of the highways and the hotels of the city. We cannot be satisfied as long as a Negro in Mississippi cannot vote and a Negro in New York believes he has nothing for which to vote. No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. I am not unmindful that some of you have come here out of great trials and tribulations. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells. Some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. You have been the veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is redemptive. Go back to Mississippi. Go back to Alabama. Go back to South Carolina. Go back to Georgia. Go back to Louisiana. Go back to the slums and ghettos of our northern cities, knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friends, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, and every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is a faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning, "My country, tears of thee. Sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring, and when this happens, when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, "Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last."